Oldseed's ringing endorsements.
Hey everybody, welcome again to the show. How you doing? I'm Craig, as you probably already realized by this. If you don't know that yet, you're not paying attention. Today's guest is my friend Bart Balboa, is what we're going to call him, because that is his nom de plume, which is French. Um, on the Facebooks and on the internets, he's a tattoo artist and a musician in a cool band called Birds in Row from France. Say the connection, where he goes under the name B. Very mysterious, but he's not really that mysterious. He's a pretty open, cool, and gentle fellow. And I've known him for a bunch of years, watched his band grow into this awesome thing that we have now. They were awesome then. They've never not been awesome. We had a great talk, and that's what we're doing today. We're talking with Bart B from Birds in Row. If you would like to hang around with us for a while, we talk about art and creativity and music and good stuff. And that's it. That's all I got for you today. Hope you're having an excellent time. Hope you're staying safe and positive. Hope you're staying positive because, yeah, that's the challenge right now. Alrighty then, let's go. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you going? You good?
I'm doing well. You're it's afternoon now already, but yeah, nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, very long time actually. I was trying to remember when was the last time, but I couldn't really figure it out. I think it was really like 3-4 years ago at least, I guess.
Yeah, maybe three. The last time I played Laval.
Oh yeah, right. No, yeah, right.
Yeah,
I
but we
forgot
only
about
saw
that.
each other at the show then.
Oh,
Just
you
when I
came
played.
to my place.
No, that was the time before, wasn't it?
Okay. I don't know.
No?
I don't know. Like
I
I'm
stayed at your
getting
place once, and
too.
then I stayed at Quentin's place once.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
So
Whatever.
how's life treating you over there? It's pretty wild right now, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird time, but I gotta say that I'm pretty lucky in all that. Is that um like with the band we decided to not tour this year because we wanted to compose a new record. So we kind of like had this luck that we didn't have anything really like programmed or booked that much. So we were not like missing a lot of shows or whatever,
Oh, good.
and we can still actually write the record, which is cool. We're actually going next week to record some demos, and so beside that, I work as a tattoo artist, so I can't work while I'm confined like that, but I still get paid for my music activities because we have this very good luck in a good chance in France that we have a statute that makes professional musicians paid when they're not working, pretty much.
Yeah,
Like unemployment period.
you have a in France you have like like it's standardized. It's like the musicians, or is it musicians or all artists? How does that work? Maybe you could explain that a bit more. How that?
It's like musicians and technicians around arts, like live art in general, like maybe theater or movies or music. You can actually depend on the unemployment fare if you work enough on a very legal and if you have contracts in the business that you're involved in. So music for me, which means that you have to do like a certain amount a year, so you can apply to unemployment fair pretty much for like 10 months, about 10 months, which means that when you're on tour, you still get paid like as if like when you have a salary and you lose your job, then you have like maybe a year that you get paid because you're unemployed and you need to find a new job, etc. And that's the same thing that they propose, but in the music business or in the live business, whatever, where it's actually, yeah, it's just if you're if you show that you have enough activity in this business, then and by that I mean legal activity, like with contracts and everything, which is like the hardest point actually. It means that between, like, when you're on tour, you get paid by the contracts you have every night, but when you're not on tour, you get paid by the government as an unemployed worker, pretty much.
Yeah,
So
I think it's really cool because it, from what I understand, it essentially it's like an unemployment insurance, but
yeah,
it's flexible enough to be able to switch on and off between your gig, between your working times,
yeah,
which is the rhythm of artists, right? We don't lose our job for a year and a half. We lose our job
mm.
for 3 weeks or a month. And yeah,
Yeah,
so I
it's
think
cool
that's
because
really
it's
cool.
like,
Yeah, you guys are lucky.
it's yeah, like we know, but you know, it took us like 10 years to reach that point because we've never wanted to get professional with the band. Like, it was really something that we thought wouldn't be for us, because you always think about, like, if there's money involved, you have to do compromises and stuff like that. And you know, like how in our scene we're very protective with everything regarding capitalism and all that. So
Sure.
it's something that was always in my mind, that I'm never gonna get a professional musician or whatever. But I think the band took a turn that was not expected. Like, the audience is bigger, the sales are better, I guess. And so it's it really just came to us to a
Yeah.
moment where, like, we had to be professional, because, like, festivals and clubs were asking us to play there, and we wanted to play there because we think it's important to not just stay in our scene and try to promote the same ideas in maybe a more mainstream place or whatever. And but, like, to play those festivals or to play those clubs, you need to be more professional, and we're very not good at being professional. So we had to ask someone to do it for us. And that's why we started working with, like, a booking agent that we have a lot of trust in, and he helped us, like, reach that point where it's, like, super easy for us now, uh, because we don't have to think about money anymore, which is good, because when you spend half of your time on the road not making money for yourself, it gets very tiresome, and you lose people on the way. So
Well, and you have, I mean, from when I first met you and your
yeah,
band, I think you're the last man standing at this point, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but it all went pretty naturally. Like I said, the first member is not in the band for, like, human reasons. So it was more like a thing of, like, we can't work together anymore. We can't play in a band together anymore. It's not humanly possible for us. And the second one was more like actually tired from being on the road all the time, and having to struggle with money when he's at home, which is also one of the things that made me think, like, yeah, maybe you should try to do some compromises on that, you know, ideals of not making money with the music or your art or whatever, and maybe take care of yourself and of your friends more.
Yeah.
And be more like, okay, this is actually, we have to recognize that it's actually a job also that we're doing, even though we don't see it as a job but more as a passion. But it's a job, and it takes a lot of our time, it takes a lot of our effort, even when we're not on tour. I mean, like, I spent my first confinement working on the new record, like, every single day.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's you know what I mean. Like, it takes a lot of time, not only on the road. Like, when you're at home, you think about what you want to do as a musician. You start working on your songs or on the communication of your project. Maybe, like, there's so many shit going on around that, like booking shows, like,
There's
so
always something to do, right?
yeah.
There's always something to do.
And
And, for me, I find I mean, I kind of wouldn't have it any other way. Like,
yeah,
I know that, like, every day pretty much, I wake up and I go to sleep thinking about what I do, this thing that I do. I'm never really off the clock, if you know what I mean. Whereas a lot of
Yeah,
people have, most jobs are like you go in and when you're there, then you're working, and when you're done, then you're done. And that's not me at all. It's every day, all day. But I think that's also just kind of that's the creative mindset that brings you to making things like
yeah,
this, like what we do. Because if you didn't have that mindset, then it wouldn't manifest itself in such a way that you know, start a band or make records and book tours and go out. It's you know, or even as a visual artist or anything, like
mm,
you need to kind of become somewhat obsessed with it,
yeah.
in
It's
order
kind
to
of a
in order
struggle. Like I kind of see it the same way that I see political involvement, like in the way that it's something that is always there, and that it can create pains sometimes, but it also creates a lot of beautiful things. So sometimes as an artist, you will feel like, actually most of the time I always feel like shit. I feel like what we do is not good enough, that we can push it further in the concept that we have, or we can, we can be better musicians, or at playing our instruments and stuff. And this is all a lot of frustration and pain sometimes, but the struggle is worth it when you play a song to someone that comes to tell you that this song matters a lot to this person, and I really feel that the same connection between my vision of like uh, politics, in the way that as a citizen is involved in politics anyway, just thinking about politics in general, the way that it creates a lot of frustrations, but also the way that it's necessary and it brings us beautiful things. So yeah, it's a real struggle. It's like I know how privileged we all are to be living from our art and all that, but at the same time, it's also uh, it's a you're still poor in the beginning. Like, I mean, you're not making millions of dollars or whatever, and also it's really like a, well, yeah, 24/7 job. Like, I think that's the hardest part, is that you can't disconnect from it. It's just always here,
yeah.
and there's always those. Like, I like this picture of like this little angel and little demons on your shoulder. Like one is like, you're doing good, it's cool, you're finally a professional artist or whatever, and the other one is like, you're shit. Like, seriously, like, have you looked at your painting, or have you listened to your own record, or and yeah, it's a real struggle, but yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's hard. It's definitely one of those things that's hard to understand if you're not in it. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I think from the outside, people think, artists have it so easy, or what a dream, or this or that, and it's like, yeah, but at the same time, it's really hard to explain the kind of what kind of sacrifice we make. It's not like it's not like a quantitative sacrifice. It's not like I make
yeah,
more sacrifice, but it's such a different sacrifice, because it
yeah,
is so all consuming, and it is so much of everything you do. And so it manifests itself in every moment of your life. Like, and, I mean, as you get older and further into it, I mean, when I first met you guys, you were
younger.
babies. You were like, I don't even think you were 20 yet. And
No, it was. I was. It's just that I look very young, but
okay, fair enough, fair enough.
yeah,
But it was, I mean, it was a good 10 years ago anyways. And as you get older and you start realizing, well, you know, I'm in this, and I'm still in this, and I can't not be in this.
yeah,
And then you start the real danger is when you compare yourself with your peers, right? With people who
yeah,
are
yeah,
not doing it, who are the same age as you, and you're like, okay, well, they have kids or a house, or,
yeah.
whatever the hell it is that they,
Mhm.
and in their life. And then, because it's so different.
Yeah, yeah. They're adults, and I'm not.
Yeah, I'm super not an adult, but I've never been
Yeah.
an adult, so I'm pretty
Yeah,
comfortable with that at this
I had
point.
this conversation with my partner recently, where I was like, I'm getting close to my 40s, and and for me, my parents have been stuck to their 40s forever because that's the age they had when I was younger, like when I was living with them. And so for me, they're still 40. They're not, they haven't moved, it's their age. And so I'm like reaching the same age than my parents. And I'm like, I don't have kids. I don't have a house. I don't have anything really. All I have is just like, a bunch of furniture and friends, I guess.
Friends and a couple of guitars. That's what it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a body of work, right?
Yeah.
The
But
body of
that's the
work.
thing that you never think of, because that's not like in. I'm gonna be the guy saying like, we live in a society, but but in the kind of society we live in, you're not, like this kind of body of work is not really valued that much. It's like it's more like, at what step of your career are you in? Like, do you have like a good job, like a good situation? Can you provide for your family? It's more that kind of ideas that people still have about life. So yeah, getting older, you really like see your friends, entering more and more into the scheme, I understand what you mean. It's kind of hard to be like, I don't really want to do this, and also like I feel like I'm very uh, far away from all of my friends on that kind of topics and stuff, and yeah, doesn't help to feel at home.
Well, and you move further away too, like
Yeah.
and for me anyways, you go through some cycles, like, because I mean, I've got another over 10 years on you. I just turned 50. So it's like I'm in this. I'm in this. There's nothing else I can't not do this anymore. Like it's clearly it's the bulk of my life. I mean, like this is what I do. But I mean, I've gone through stages of my life. Like when I was 30, there was some shifts in my life moving me more into this. And all my friends started having kids then. Well, all those kids are now 20, right? So
Yeah.
they're all like, so those guys already some of them are becoming grandparents, and like, but you move away from those people just because you don't have as much in common, also because you're traveling, you move in different circles, and then you discover that you develop a new group of friends, kind of, and then you go through that, and then those friends start having kids. They're maybe a little bit younger, so like I've got like a group of friends my age that I'm not super in touch with anymore because they're all grown up in that way, a lot of them, most of them. And then you meet a new group of friends that are maybe 10 years younger, like guys like you, and now that whole crew is also starting to make that division. And so now I've got another group and I've kind of been through that story already once. So I know how it's going to play out, but it's a weird thing. It's like, yeah.
In the end, you end up hanging out with your friends' babies,
Sure. All my best friends are my friends' kids and stuff. Yeah. Grandkids. Whatever.
And it starts looking weird.
Yeah, sure. I mean, also like in terms of like, generally speaking, younger people go to shows. And so, I'm playing shows for 20-year-old people still, but I don't know, for me, you don't want to go too far in that direction because ultimately it doesn't accomplish anything. And it's not that weird. There are also lots of people that do that.
Yeah.
Like, you're not alone. There's other 50-year-old people like me who, don't have kids and play music and travel the world. And like, I'm not the only one. Like,
no, definitely not. And I actually think it's something that is a problem now in the music industry, is that, aging acts like a band that is more than 10 years, for example, is not a value anymore as well. It's more like, if you're the fresh young project that blew everything, that really like exploded in 1 year, that's way better than you building a career and like consistent body of work of like every new record is a bit different, and you have a long-term project really. I feel like it's something that is more into like this very consuming aspect of the music industry, where it's like you have to have fresh new acts more and more and more and more, And like when you see, recently we've been on tour with bands like Neurosis or Converge, and when I was like, I actually watched a lot of interviews of Neurosis recently, and I'm like, I really want to be the same when they're age, where I'm like, I still want to do this. I still have the same passion in what I'm doing, and fuck the rest in a certain way. Like if you're not happy with it, whatever. But like I'm still doing it, or like what you're doing as well. Like I feel this. I value this way more than quick success, for example. For me, it's really more important to see a project like a music project, and dive into their discography, for example, and look at like all the different records and the different meanings and the different ambiances and stuff, than just be, oh yeah, this new band that is like surfing on this new wave of recycling 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, sure. I'm in one sense, I think that's kind of, in some ways that's always been the case. Like there's always been the hot new thing, and whether we're talking about the like our scene, like the DIY scene, or if we're even talking about like big, like massive stuff. There's the stuff that comes in, burns out quick and leaves. You got the one hit wonders or whatever, and and those things explode. But it's very rare for the one hit wonder to then sustain. So it's also it's a blessing and a curse. It's like this idea that like what is it, like the like all like it's the what is it, the curse of the curse of the Grammy curse, like when you get a Grammy for best new artist, like you're almost guaranteed to not have a career.
And then
Yeah. Like
have a Grammy anyway.
Like and it is really cool to have to like have a longer career and a body of work like that, like thinking of like Neurosis or Converge or guys like that, where you go and you change and you morph and you learn and you build your own thing. But with the guys like Neurosis, I mean, they do it and they're still doing it, but it's not been easy. There's been a lot of, Scott and I spent a couple of weeks in a car together once, and I got to know him pretty well, and he's been through a lot. And and you have to carry your successes and your mistakes with you at the same time as you get older,
but
right?
I think that's what makes it interesting also, like the point of view of artists that had a long career and that are able to say it's all up and down, like sometimes you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this band is wonderful, like I didn't remember how much I love this band or whatever, and then you're gonna be just forgotten on the next record, for example, or something like that. And I think it's interesting because it means that if you passed all those momentums, like may they be positive and negative, and you're still playing it, it means that you're playing music for the right reason. It's not just like a matter of like you want success or you need to have some kind of recognition or anything like that. Like of course we all do, but it's not only based on that. I think like a lot of us that play music on a long-term journey is more like you have to do it for your own sake, really, for you. It's kind of like a life-saving stuff, I guess.
Yeah, well, and then this is again coming back to this whole thing of like, we are consumed by our art all day, every day. If we're serious about it, and and so it's, I think it's ultimately I absolutely believe it's a good thing. Otherwise otherwise I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror, like this is what I do. So I have to believe.
I fucked up my life.
Yeah. Oh, and don't think that there aren't moments like that. I mean, I'm sure you have them too, where you just like, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh shit, this is it. Hey, all right. Fuck.
Yeah. I should clean my room and get rid of those guitars.
Exactly. Get a job, a real job. And in these times with the basically forced unemployment that we're all dealing with, that's really hard because It's telling us that if you start thinking fatalistically, it's like, well, was this like did I make the wrong choice? I mean, is this showing me that I made the wrong choice, that I should have chosen something safe and secure and not involving travel? Like, like, I mean, because we can't, not involving sitting in a room with no ventilation with a bunch of people.
Yeah. And also there's this thing that, I don't know how it is in Germany, but in France at the moment, the new confinement is like essential jobs can still, work and stuff like that. But the other ones, the non-essential people are stuck at home. And we're part of the non-essential people, which is like a big discussion as well about like the place of culture in the society in general. And yeah, it makes you think, like makes you feel like shit. Actually, it's like really, it's really like, oh yeah, I'm not essential for this society. Like, and I don't count or anything. Even though we still receive messages from people saying like, your last record really helped me go through this or that. Like, where you see that your art has an impact on people, which makes you feel more useful. Even with all this, you still think like, yeah, like in the eyes of society, I'm not essential.
Yeah.
There's no point in having shows anyway. So
well, that made me really angry right off the start, because I read a newspaper like graphic came across my social media feed of like a list of essential and non-essential jobs, like top 5 essential and non-essential jobs. An artist was at the top of the non-essential jobs, and it infuriated me. And I've talked about this before on this thing that I'm doing right now, but it bears to be repeated as many times as possible. But it's like, if we're at a turning point right now, which we are arguably, I mean, the world is at a turning point. It's going to take creativity to figure out what the next step is. And creativity is fueled by art. Without art, there is no creativity. If you take away the artistic thinking of people, whether you're a scientist or a journalist or an actual artist, you're not going to be able to think in a new way and have a new perspective. That's what art does. And so I think it's incredibly essential, more essential than banking, that's for sure.
I'm not a very spiritual person. Like, I don't have any spiritual beliefs or anything like that. I'm very atheist, but like, I truly believe in the power of symbolism, for example, where like being able to create strong pictures, may they be like a painting or even in a song, like illustrating strongly speech that might be political, for example, in a way that in that way, like in this very strong pictorial way, it means that it's going to touch more people because it reaches to something that is beyond, logic or anything like that. Sometimes, but I mean, you can see during this crisis that a lot of people just don't understand science, for example. So they can be profoundly anti-science because they don't even know how it works, which is not their fault, really. It's just a matter also of communication. But I think that the role that artists have is also that it takes the things in people's hearts, really, like all those symbols that are important for them, like that are like pulling the strings in like love or death or very very strong feelings in people's life. I'd say when you play with them and you use them to, how do you say that, to reach like a more precise topic, for example, that's when you create bridges between the people and topics that they didn't have any grasp on in the first place. I think it's maybe not very clear. Also, I haven't been speaking English in a while, so I'm.
Hey, you're kicking ass, my friend. You're kicking ass. That's excellent. If we tried doing this in French, it would stop about 3 minutes in. So.
But yes, I've really thought of that recently because I obviously wrote lyrics a lot, and I really like the fact that you can talk about politics without using a political language. just talking about love, for example, or like you can even use like symbolism that is common to everyone, because we all have like a Christian or a Christian background. Whatever we say, we know about like Christian symbolism and stuff. So you can even use that kind of language to speak to people, even though they don't believe in God or whatever. It's just like something that we all know what heaven is, we all know what hell is, and this kind of thing. So I find it very interesting to like simplify maybe a very intricate socio-political topic into some kind of poetry that will reach the hearts of people and make them think about this kind of topic further. I think it's something that's pretty crucial. Even more when you see that a lot of people get into politics, for example, or like into acknowledging their own personality through artists that talked about something that they didn't hear before. Like, I don't know, you can talk about gender identity, for example. I know a lot of people that discovered their own vision of genders through artists that were talking about non-binarity or this kind of thing. I know a lot of people that got into politics because they started listening to Rage Against the Machine. It's really, I think this art is a very powerful channel to convey important topics and this kind of thing, where like marketing, for example, because that's the when I saw that artists were like the least essential workers, I was like, what about marketing? Like, it's the worst. It's one of the worst thing, like advertisement or this kind of thing. Like, how is it important? Like, seriously, it's like, for me, like all that I said about being an artist and like the messages that you can convey are way more important than selling some pastas or selling some shoes or this kind of thing. It's like, but also it's a kind of vision that you build of what you're doing because you want to make sure you don't think that you're non-essential, but
Yeah.
but maybe it's the case. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's probably a bit of both. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you're talking about the power of the metaphor, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like that the metaphor is a symbol for something else. And I've always been a big believer in this idea that the more ambiguous your in terms of lyrics, the more ambiguous your lyrics are, the more open the piece is to interpretation. And so then that means that just increases the number of people who can relate to it. And that's what I want to do with my songs. I want people to be able to relate to what I'm saying and to take it and make it their own, to like have their own personal ownership in what I'm saying. So instead of me saying these are the points I want to make in my song and I say, here's an image. How do you take it? Like, how does it affect you? And there's some really fundamental stuff, like, love. Probably that's the only one that's really fundamental. Everything else is kind of, that's where we start, seeing things in different ways. But when we talk about something as nebulous as love, then we can all come at it from our own angle and take it away, and then it increases the love in the world, for lack of, to sound corny, but and so I'm 100% behind, like, I agree with you completely about the idea of the value of those who create these metaphors or these symbols that or present these symbols that people can then connect with. I mean, human connectivity is, I mean, we are a social creature, so we need to connect. And
I've always been like you, thinking that, just build something that is not too clear, not too precise, and not too not dictating any kind of way of thinking on a topic, so people can use it and make their own thing, because I believe that it's easier to get to a point if you're not pushed to get there, in a way. But there's also the other hand, like
you know what, I'm gonna have to, we had a little bit of a break up there, and I really want you to talk about that again so that I can edit that one out and put it in again. Tell me about your friend's book again.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, so yeah, it's Gerfried Embrosch. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name because I'm very bad in German. He plays in several bands such as Archivists, and he wrote this book called The Poetry of Punk that actually talks about how punk is based on 30-second songs, straight to the point lyrics, and how there is a lot of poetry behind it as well, even though it's not like a shitload of words and stuff like that. It's still very interesting to dissect and get into those lyrics and understand like all the background and it's very interesting for me because it made me think of as I said, it challenged my vision of like what good lyrics are, where I was like I'm still just thinking the same way as you do, where I want my lyrics to be very open for people to understand, and there's always something in my mind saying like just don't be too ambiguous so people can't connect it with racism, for example, or with this kind of topics, obviously. But when I read this book, I was really like, yeah, there's also a lot of interest in being very straight to the point on several topics. Like if you're talking about anti-fascism, for example, sometimes it's also good to just say fuck it, and this is why you should not, you should not promote any fascist ideas or whatever. I think it's really both both ideas, both ways of writing lyrics are very complementary in a way. So,
Sure, and of course you need balance to these things, but also there's, I mean, the thing that I like about well, Birds and Row definitely, and punk more generally, is the it's just because it's short doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of depth to it. I mean, it's essentially it's minimalism. Like your band is very minimalistic. I mean, just in the setup of just a bass, guitar, drums, one vocal straight off the floor, pretty much sounding. There's not a lot of fancy trickery going on. It just kind of, and I think lyrically, you have a lot of stuff that's very kind of like, you're not super verbose. Like your lyrics aren't like, it's not like reading a novel, like you got a lot of short phrases in there, and that's good. That's the aesthetic, and that
yeah,
that
I wish
aesthetic,
I was king, but I'm not.
no, but I mean, it wouldn't work for what you do either. But also, like that whole aesthetic, then this, simple, to the point, musically, even if your lyrics are metaphorical and not poignant, the statement of the music, the full statement of the music is get to the fucking point, right? Like it's like hit the nerve, right? Which is a big part about punk too. It's like, I don't have time to fuck around. This is my metaphor. This is the metaphor of my band. I don't have time to fuck around. We're just gonna fucking get it done. And it's urgent, right? It creates a sense of urgency. And I think Birds and Row is a very, very urgent band. I think you guys have a lot of urgency.
Like we used to be more urgent. Now I think like the last record and the one that we're working on is more actually toward the metaphorical vision, or like what we were saying, that having like a lot of metaphors in the pictures in the lyrics and stuff. And but also because I've seen that the few first songs that I wrote with metaphors that were not like actually straight to the point were the ones that were speaking more to people as well, and it was very interesting. Come and they're like, look, I got your lyrics tattooed, but now can you tell me what you mean by that? Like, because those lyrics, I love them, they mean this for me, but what does it mean for you, the artists? And I find it very interesting. I had the same kind of situation in tattooing, where like you draw a flash design, for example, a very anti-clerical flash design, and someone comes and get it tattooed, and they're like, yeah, because I believe in God, and you remind me of this kind of thing. And I was like, okay, but it's actually very positive, and so I don't have anything against it. That's it, and it's really interesting because it means that the most important is that I touched something important in you that needed to be
resonated with, or I don't know. And so yeah, I think, like, for example, the new lyrics that we wrote are more metaphorical than the first things that we wrote when we met the first time, where we had like very precise songs like "Die testosterone die." You know, it's like it's like
sure,
there's no
sure.
ambiguity around that. So, but yeah, it's I really like both worlds. So it's kind of like juggling between them two sometimes, but I think it's important to find your own identity in the middle of this.
Sure. And speaking of the metaphor, you as a, I mean, you're a fantastic musical artist, and I love your stuff, but you're also a really fantastic tattoo artist. And
Thank you.
it's an like, what are your thoughts on this idea that I just sort of have, I'm sort of spinning right now, that, okay, when you create music, somebody else receives that music and makes it their own to some extent. But when you tattoo someone, it's way more literal. You're literally putting it physically on them, and it is their art. And so your intention kind of, I mean, does it become less important? Where does really your intention sit in that?
Like, so when someone comes to you because they want to get it tattooed by you, there are like two ways of doing it. Either they ask you a specific design that you already drew, like flash design or anything like that, which means that they're really just interested in your art, and this piece of art resonates in them, and they want to own it like properly in their skin and stuff. And make them their own, like just like the same way that someone receives a song, I think, where it's like, oh yeah, this song is really my song. I don't know, for whatever reason, like it makes me think of my situation. It makes me think of my lover or whatever, and so I really think this is my song. When I listened to it, I straight away thought it was my song. But there's also this other situation where like someone comes to you and say, I really like what you do. I would like you to tattoo a portrait of my dog on me, for example, or like a representation of this symbol, like a Medusa, for example, or something like that. Which means that it's like, I love the way you treat aesthetically topics in general, but I would like you to work on this topic that is really important for me, which is very different, because it's the same way that if I would come to you, be like, I love your voice, I love your guitar playing and everything, but can you sing a song about my mom?
Yeah.
It's like this is something I can't do in music at all. Like I would always refuse to create music for something that doesn't come from me, because I've never done that, and it really scares me, and I don't know, I feel like I would lose touch with the reasons I do music for her. But like in tattooing, since the day I started tattooing, that was the main thing that people would ask. So you're like, okay, this is like a customer situation. It's like you want something, and I'm going to provide it, and the important thing is that you have what you want. It's not, the important thing is not my artistic visualization of the thing, whatever. It's like I'm still going to put something of myself in this, obviously, but the most important thing is that you have the product that you asked for, and that and you're pleased with it for like the next 30 years of your life or whatever. So it's really there's like both situations. Like I said, like I remember doing this like very specific flash where it was like a monk with a burning cross in his hand, where I designed this flash, being like, yeah, it's something that is very disparate and very jaded and disappointed by its own passion. That was kind of my idea behind this design, like being jaded and being tired of its own passion, and kind of something like that. And the person who got it tattooed, that was actually a hardcore kid, came to me and we started talking when I was like tattooing it on him, And it was like, yeah, you know, when I saw this, it really made me think of my vision of religion, because I'm like kind of a newborn Christian, we would say. But you know, very critical about the writings and all that, like very like this kind of new Christianity, where it's like, yeah, I believe in God, but I'm not sure about the Bible. You know, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting to me, because like for whatever reasons, like designed in the way that it was like, you know, the feeling of like the burning of the passion of the Christ or something like that. It was like, whoa, this is like, I think that's the total opposite of what I designed it for. But I still find it pretty interesting, because it's not on the opposite side where I'm like, whoa, dude, no, there's no way I'm gonna tattoo this because it's like, I don't know, a racist interpretation or anything like that. No, it was more like, I don't have the same belief than you have, and still we can connect on some symbols, and still, you know, have like something in common, like in a certain way. And I don't know, it was kind of very interesting. Like, it also got me to think that maybe I should be less ambiguous sometimes, because I don't want it to be like too poorly interpreted sometimes. But I find it very interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. It's just like when I think about like people who do more than one art form, I'm interested in the intersect, like how they connect. And yeah, because I would imagine it was, I mean, you said like someone coming to you and saying, can you write a song about my mother? It could also be almost in a more sort of day-to-day sense. It would be like writing your own music versus covering someone else's music, right?
Yeah.
Like if you do someone else's song, a cover song of a favorite song, if you're, at least for me, like as the musician that I am, I can't cover a song to sound like the song. It sounds like me covering the song. And
actually, like a very quick thing, but I don't think if I've ever thanked you for getting me into Towns Van Zandt, because your cover of Towns Van Zandt, I still remember about it with the first times we played together, and since that day I've been listening to it like very regularly.
Yeah, he's one of the greats. And that's a long time ago for me too. Like I haven't covered Towns in forever. But yeah, I used to do him. But there's an American author named Chuck Klosterman. Do you know this guy? He's like a rock journalist guy, and he's written a few different books about. He's got an interesting perspective. He's a really good writer. It's pretty funny and fun. It's nothing too deep or dark, but he did one really interesting article. It wasn't a book. It was just an article, and I can't even remember what magazine, where he followed a Guns N' Roses tribute band for a weekend of shows, and started thinking about the idea of being a tribute band, which is the ultimate cover band, right? If you can, right? And what he said that has always stuck with me, I mean, I read this probably 10 years ago, is this idea that if you're in a tribute band, you're not so much, you're essentially the antithesis of a musician, of a songwriter. But let's say of a songwriter, not a musician, but of a songwriter, because the goal of a songwriter is to be as original as possible, whereas the goal of a tribute band is to be exactly like the other person as much as possible. So you're going, the better you get as a tribute act, the worse you get as a artist, let's say. It's like anti-art. And I just thought that was so interesting. I mean, that this is really how it plays out. Like, because you're really, if you're, and this comes down, this is a thing with music that I find all the time, because so much of, I don't know about you, but certainly with me, like, you know, when we nerding, like gear nerding, right? Like when we nerd out about guitar sounds and amp sounds and stuff like that. And we figure out what other people did to get different sounds. We watch YouTube videos about, you know, how to dial in the right sound on a tube screamer or whatever the hell we do, right? But that's essentially learning how to be like someone else, not being right? But we all like, do it. Like,
I've always counted on my inability to play the instrument and to understand profoundly how sound is made to reach that original point, because it's like, if I wanted to play like Converge, I wouldn't be able to do it. But trying to achieve that, I would probably create something different. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like when you think in terms of sound, for example, when you think, oh yeah, this person might use like that kind of pedal or this kind of thing, or whatever, and you try to reproduce it, sometimes some magic happens. It's like, well, I didn't expect that, but it sounds so cool. Like, okay, I'm really not, I don't think I'm that much in control of my my instrument and thing. You know, it's really more like of a very randomized thing for me. But I totally understand what you mean. But like, I, when you were talking about the tribute band, like I was wondering, like, what is the history reason for tribute bands? Is it something that because it was not affordable, or you couldn't like have access to AC/DC, for example, that some tribute band would like cover them for their friends or for like some people in their area or whatever? Or is it just like, I'm super fan of AC/DC and I wish I was the guitar player of AC/DC, and I'm gonna pretend that I am, or like I'm not really sure about that.
I think a lot of it is economic. I think a lot of it is just someone saying, okay, I'm a really technically skilled guitar player. I've learned how to cover all these different acts. I think if I can get these guys together and we were to put on the right costumes and learn the right moves, we could really sound exactly like Guns N' Roses. And I look a little bit like Slash too, so it's even easier. And you know, and then you just get it more and more perfect. And then you get out and you don't make Guns N' Roses money, but you certainly get, a full, you can make a fairly decent living. But that's another thing that he touches on, is that they don't make tons of money. Like that's the other question, is like, these guys, they work really hard. They've got to drive lots of hours to get from one gig to the other, and they don't make tons. And so why are you doing it? And I don't know, maybe I'll try to dig up the article and I'll send it to you later. You can read it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably better than working for a company that you hate, or like, factory that is ruining your body or whatever. But it makes me think also that the first gigs I went to when I was younger, like a lot of them were the Ramones cover band in our own town in Laval, where like the drummer is actually the person that taught a lot of us how to play in bands, like really just simply like putting us together and like telling us how to compose a song or something like that. And for a very, very, very long time, I liked this band better than the Ramones because they were not trying to sound exactly like the Ramones. They were just like, fuck, I love the Ramones, but I also love Faith No More or whatever band. And I'm going to put a little bit of this and that into, Sheena is a punk rocker or whatever song. Yeah. And so that's, I don't know. I've always, when I think about cover bands, I always think of them like, that was like a fucking great cover band. It was really like this guy that can sing, like he could sing like so good. Like he had such a good voice, like impressive, and they all could play so well, and the energy was here. And I remember being a kid and being like, whoa, like if I was a kid today and I was singing this band, I would be like, whoa, those boomers rock, There's something like that.
Yeah, because they're probably even they're old farts at this point. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I don't know, covers. I mean, covers is a weird thing. I guess you guys don't really do any covers, do you?
No, like I have a weird thing with that also. Like at some point in the band, we had this discussion about like maybe some other members could write the lyrics and I would sing them, and I didn't feel comfortable at all. Like I think the thing that we do is so visceral. It's so visceral. It's for me, it's a lot of shit that I have in myself that I need to get out. that I couldn't do that with someone else's words.
Yeah, sure.
So I've always been like, if you want to write lyrics, sure, just sing them, because I don't like it would make more sense if you write the lyrics that you sing them for me. So like playing a whole song that we haven't even written is kind of weird. I like the fact of like, having your own take on a song that you love or something like that, like for special occasions, like, I don't know, compilations or whatever. But I don't know. I've never really seen a creative, everything that I do, I've always done it to create something on my own.
Yeah.
Like when I started playing guitar, I really didn't learn shitload of songs before I wanted to get better at playing. In the first place, I took the guitar and I wrote my own stuff that were probably shitty and stuff, but like I was like, no, I want to write my stuff. And then I picked up a band with a simple way of playing guitar, and was like, okay, what kind of chords do they use or whatever, like, and I started playing all of their songs to like, kind of like, because I was at this point where I couldn't find any other way of, creating sounds or whatever. So I needed to like get some inspiration somewhere else. And then after that, I haven't like read a tab or anything. I've always just like wrote my own stuff really, like, I don't know. It's the same. It's actually the same in drawing. I never really liked drawing something that I liked, like a painting or whatever, reproducing it. Like, it's never been something that I liked. I like the fact of like, I might be shitty technically, but it's still what I'm producing is who I am, who I am like on this day. And tomorrow I'm gonna be better at painting, so the painting is probably gonna look better, or like the tattoo is gonna look better, the drawing is gonna look better. So it will represent who I will be tomorrow, or who I will be the next day, or whatever. And I really like this idea that the record, for example, is just, in our case, the three of us and how we were on this during this year, and which explains why we wrote those songs and this kind of thing. And the sound is also based on the fact that maybe we were not as good at playing our instruments that right now, or like, I don't know, there's like this kind of like testimony of your existence at a certain point of your life in the art that you produce that is very important to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a lot of like philosophical thinking, I guess.
Well, no. I mean, it of course it's philosophical thinking. That's what we're here to do right now. But I mean, I do believe that it's like it's a journey, and you're always learning and you're always growing. And if you stop learning and growing, then you need to do some self-evaluation and figure out what's a life without learning it doesn't really make much sense to me. I mean, and certainly with what you guys do, I would not expect you guys to do a cover, because your thing is a very complete package, and a very, like I said, it's very it's a force, right? Like musically or aesthetically, it's very much a punch, right? And it's like, it doesn't make sense to like beef out your set with a cover song. Like, that doesn't fit into your aesthetic. My aesthetic's a little different. So for me, yeah, every once in a while I'll throw in a cover, but I they don't stay long. Like, they don't have a lot of value to me.
Yeah, and also I think there's different ways of doing a cover. As I said, like, I think the way you do it is like you have a take on the song.
Absolutely, because I can't do it the other way. I can't do this. I can't be Slash. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. That's not my skill set. So it sounds like me, but they draw like.
Yeah, there's a thing that is interesting in that as well. If you think about music like hip hop, where they use a lot of sampling, for example, where like at some point hip hop used a lot of funk samples, for example, which brought back funk into the cool things again, or whatever. And I think it's interesting because it's like it's also a way of saying like, this is my background, my cultural background, and this is what I'm making of it. It's kind of a very easiest way to see, okay, this person likes black metal, but everything that he loves in black metal is going to put it in an acoustic song, for example. And which is like, normally you would think that maybe it's very opposite or not, but like, but like it's doable. It's like what we do every time. Like I mean, when you write a song for yourself, you can't disconnect from your cultural background. There's always Van Sant and all those bands you listen to, whatever. So you already do that in a certain way, but when you make it in a more visual way, visible way, I mean, it's very interesting too. It's like, yeah, I mean, like when you cover Tons Van Sant, it's like it touched me the same way as if it was your own song in a way. You know, it's because there was still the quote, the quote,
yeah, and again, that's another part of making something your own, right?
yeah.
And the interesting thing when you talk about sampling is, for me anyways, like I just thought of this now, but like sampling, I mean, the difference between sampling and playing a style of music, there's not a lot of difference. I mean, if you're sampling funk, a funk record, and you're using it for a hip hop track, me learning how to play country music is also sampling. It's just sampling, and by me using my memory to remember and to learn how somebody else does something and then doing it. Like, so it's still kind of the same thing, you know, because it's, you know, it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel. It's not even like I mean, your stuff's more modern than my stuff, but it's not even like you are. I mean, we know where our influences come from, and what I love about this idea of, like, when you said black metal and acoustic, it's quite funny because I'm actually listening to a lot of black metal these days, and I find it very valuable as a songwriter to try to listen to as much music that doesn't sound like what I make as possible, because I don't want to listen to other acoustic country-based singer-songwriters, because then I'll just end up consciously or subconsciously using their stuff. Whereas if I listen to, I don't know, Emperor, right? Like I'll be like, well, how do I take something out of this and put it into my, which is very challenging, right?
But it's something that I feel every time we start thinking about writing new music. Like as soon as we decided, I stop listening to the kind of music we do.
Yeah.
But like it's really like it's really like a very primitive reaction. It's like, oh no, I don't want to listen to hardcore. I don't want to listen to screamo. Everything is the same. I don't want to, But I think it's a very protective way of creating, where you like, yeah, as you said, I don't want to be, I don't want to be influenced by bands that already kind of sound like what we do, or like that we sound like. Because I don't want to perpetuate the same symbols. I don't want to perpetuate the same aesthetic or whatever. Like you want to reach another step in what you're doing as a creative artist. And so yeah, that's the same. Like lately, I've listened to a lot more of like electro music, for example, ambience, or like I've listened to everything but hardcore. And also, I guess you have the same feeling. But when you tour a lot, you often play with the same type of artist than you are. So you feel like you've listened to the same songs all over again every day.
It gets really samey. Yeah. It gets really
it's hard
samey.
It's really hard to be excited about it when you come back from a tour where you've played with like 3 hardcore bands every night, for example. It's hard to be excited by a new hardcore band when you come back from tour. Like it's like, okay, there's a mosh part, there's a breakdown, whatever. Which doesn't mean that it's not a good band. It's just that you're too tired of this kind of music to appreciate it the way you should. Like I find it very fascinating, and like I'm kind of envious of the people that I see that are really into hardcore when they tour a lot with hardcore bands and stuff like that. Like this like kind of like obsession with one style of music, for example, or like it's not totally true, but like I mean the way they find it still exciting. I'm very envious of that, because sometimes I feel like it's not, you kind of feel like shit thinking that, but at some point you're like, oh, I've seen it all, all the bands, they're the same, they're all rip off Minor Threat, whatever, like.
Well, I mean you can also just sort of say, like, I mean, I always say, like, if you're a professional dishwasher, your kitchen sink is always full with dirty dishes, right? Like, it's like it's the same thing. It's just like, why, I mean, you're full. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. You're just full. And
Yeah.
and the good thing is that gives you a chance to, if you're really a music fan, and of course you are, if you're playing music all the time, then you're going to appreciate stuff outside of your style, because there's good stuff to pull from everything. You can go and listen to a Cardi B record and go, oh, there's a cool chord progression, or there's a cool sound, or there's a cool beat, or whatever that I think could be incorporated. You're like, you can do it anywhere. Like if you're, I mean, I find like the older I get, the more I listen to music like in that way. Like I don't really listen to music. I listen to music and I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. And then I'm like, how can I use it? Like,
yeah, there's always the thing.
how am I going to put that in my little bag of tricks? Like, but
Craig
I don't know.
DB.
Yeah, sure. Craigie B. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I'm too old. I don't care. And I can't dance, to quote to half quote one of your songs. I wanted to make a joke about that earlier. I was going to, do you really not dance? But what?
Yeah, I don't dance.
You don't? You really don't dance?
I hate dancing.
Why?
But that's because I have some social issues and stuff like that. And I don't like parties in the first place. So why would I dance alone in my living room?
That's the best place to dance. That's where I do all of my dancing.
Yeah, but no. I just it's something that I totally respect, like 200%, like dancing and everything. There's no judgmental values behind what I'm gonna say, but it's just that I don't understand it. I don't understand when I see like like a art dancing, whatever, like a very a choreography or whatever, and I'm like, it just doesn't do anything to me, and I would not want to be one of them persons because I would feel very awkward. So, and it's the same with like dancing in a club, for example. I don't even drink, so why would I go to a club? Like, and most of the people I know, they say like, you can't go to a club if you're not drunk. So so like it's just a no-go for me, So but yeah,
I can hardly wait until you get to that point where you realize, or if you get to that point when I could imagine you guys doing like a video that's all dancing, that's all like like, but you just have like interpretive dancers the whole time, and it's not even, you aren't even playing, it's just like choreographed.
I think we actually did it for the song "I Don't Dance."
You did do that, because I only know the song. I didn't see the video. So, okay, well, never mind.
For the first time, so some of us had an idea for that video because we really wanted to that song to be the music video for the record, and some of us had an idea, but we were like, maybe we should ask someone, outside of the band, that they write everything and they produce the music video and everything, because that's something we've never done, and it could be interesting to have like someone's take on what we're doing. So we reached to our friend Craig Murray, and I met him in London. We started talking, and he was like, dude, the idea that I have is like two classical dancers fighting. It's like MMA and classical dancing at the same time. And I was like, that's kind of crazy because that's actually the idea that we had, like, in the first place, because like, I don't know, it made a lot of sense to have this kind of like, struggle, but also very aesthetical dance, whatever. And so it was very interesting to see that he had exactly the same visual idea that we had on this song. And when he started doing it, we started like also talking about like how we could implement some fighting into this choreography, because at some point we had a version where we thought was too graphic, was too violent graphically, so there was a bit too much of the violent part, and so we asked him to just redo a bit of the editing and everything, and so we have a music video with dancers, and which is interesting is like, I think it got me a little bit closer to understanding this kind of art, because I was on the side of like deciding what it should mean, like I wanted to talk about struggle and very like aesthetic way, very classical aesthetic way, whatever, classically aesthetic. And so I had all the things, you know, instead of like watching a dance and be like, I don't understand what it means, I was like, this is what it should mean. And then the dance happened, you know. And so it was very more interesting for me because then, yeah, I understood it probably a little bit better than actually you can produce some feelings and some meanings with people, you know, doing gestures like that.
It's a beautiful art form when it's done as an art form, but it's also really fun just to fucking get down.
To be like, yeah,
just a boogie. It's fun to boogie. I like dancing. I don't like dancing like at a bar. Like I don't go to clubs. I don't go to clubs to dance. I haven't since I was like 20, or maybe 30. But I love dance. Like I dance in my living room all the time, or in the kitchen. Yeah, I mean, we've got nice hardwood floors. If you've got your socks on and it's all slippery, it's really good. You get some good moves happening.
You know, the closest I get to dancing is probably when we play on stage.
Yeah, sure, that's a form of dance.
Like,
that's a form of dance.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So okay, so you guys are doing you're in the middle of a new record right now, or where are you at?
We have composed a lot of the music, and our idea is that we want to have like as many songs as possible, so we can just like pick the ones that we want to.
You're doing that one.
Gather on a record.
Good for you.
And so yeah, I almost finished writing lyrics for like 7 or 8 songs, and it's cool because it's a very weird time to write lyrics about being hopeful.
Yeah,
you know, like, because that's what we try to do. We really try to take all the depression and all the anger and all that and try to channel it in a very hopeful way. Like pretty much tell to people there are good reasons to be angry, there are good reasons to be depressed, but there's also like lights in the tunnel or something like that.
Yeah,
you know, there's like count on each other, and we're gonna find some way together. And these times are so violent and they're so rough that it's really hard to find some hope, I think. So it really challenged me on this, because I spent a lot of my time being like very tired and very disappointed by people, but at the same time I didn't want to end up in a very easy nihilistic, you know, path, because it's so easy, I think, to be just like, yeah, fuck people, you know, and you know, it doesn't bring anything on the table really in the end. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I think it's really hard to find this kind of hope. So like the lyrics that I started writing and the music also, the music is actually pretty dancey when I think of it, like very like, there's a lot of groove and this kind of thing, because I think with the previous record we started, you know, shifting to a more like it's not that we wanted to do it, it's just that it happened on itself. But I find out that the songs that we had were more appealing to more people. You know, it was like it's not pop music obviously, but it's still more catchy. Like we've never had choruses, for example. It's always been just like a shitload of text and nothing. There's not there's not a part that would come back in the song. It's always just like an escalating song pretty much. And on the last record we started having like choruses, which is kind of interesting, and you can see the power of it, like how it resonates with people, like how we're also like formatted to react to this kind of like format of songs. And so I think it kind of like made us take a switch on the way we see music, where like unconsciously I think we started like writing music a bit more for like people to connect in between each other, like, you know, dance together maybe, you know, this kind of thing. It's still not a bossa nova record, or it's still not like a dance record or whatever, but it's just you know, there's a lot of influences that are more rhythmical and you know, dancey and groovy, and which I really like. And on the other hand, the lyrics are more, I think for the moment they're very personal and very you know, it's like pushing the concept of the darkness we already had in some of our on some of our songs. Like we're pushing it very further, but at the same time, there's still this little light in the tunnel, and it's still like can we please try to work on solidarity? This kind of message.
And this is, I mean, this has been sort of a theme of why I'm doing this series is we're in such a dark time and we're so disconnected that it's important to connect. And I wanted to sort of find some different people that I know on the one hand, just to say, hey, I think you're really awesome, to give you some encouragement to just say, you're in your bubble, I'm in my bubble, but know that I'm, I'm a fan and I think you're awesome. And I think you should keep going. And it's good that you're in the world on the one hand. And on the other hand, just sort of say, well, we're all going through this together. So what are you doing to keep, to not get sucked into the absolute black hole that's sitting right beside us? And I think you're doing a great job. I mean, it sounds like you're trying to stay positive without being naive, and you're staying creative. So that's great. And you're so lucky that this worked into your own plan of your cycle of recording anyways. So
we're like the luckiest. Like during the first confinement, we received a lot of messages of people being like, "How can I help you? I know you can't tour anymore, and you rely on touring, blah blah blah." So we had to actually post something saying like, "We're fine. Like if you want to help artists, like go help artists that need it, but because we are actually very fine, and thank you for your concerns, but like we would like you to put all this great thoughts or like all this kindness to other people that actually need it." But yeah, we're very very lucky. And as I said, like the status that we reached as musician, that's the first time I reached it. Like that's the first year, so it really happened right before confinement.
Your timing was perfect.
Woo!
Yeah, your timing was perfect.
Well, because,
good, and I'm glad that your timing was perfect. I'm glad you're in a good spot. I hope we get to meet soon.
That'd be tight.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, as soon as I can get back to France, but chances are, and this is the other thing I'm thinking, is chances are once we're able to tour again, all of us, we're all going to be gone. Like everyone's going to go. It's going to be an absolute overflux of musical options. Everyone's going to just gig.
Yeah. I don't know how it's gonna work because, I think the professional part of the industry is been hit hard by this crisis, where like very big companies in this industry started like sacking people out and stuff. And to me, DIY doesn't rely on money that much, which means that we have this power, we have this strength of like being like, if I want to put out a show in my living room, I can do it. Like there's not a lot of effort to put in it. There's not a lot of sacrifices, and there's not a lot of risk, in doing it. We don't have to employ like 30 people for one gig, So I have good faith in the DIY staying strong, because I think it's always stayed strong. I mean, like hardcore punk rock and all this kind of music, even singer-songwriters, they were like out of trend for a long time. Like it's kind of got refreshed recently, but like for a long time it was just like, yeah, whatever. It's a dude with his guitar, or like a woman playing his guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was way more like hip hop and all that. And I think it's just that we're constant. We're very like people that listen to punk rock. They listen to punk rock their whole life, and probably their kids are gonna listen to punk rock too, and maybe a little bit more of hip hop than their parents, but still. But it's just like I think we're a very strong community, a very strong culture, as long as we don't see strength into a mainstream point of view.
Yeah, well, if what we do, obviously our intention is that we're going to do it, that we want to do it. And it's not for any other reason than that we want to do it. And so that's why we keep doing it. That's why the DIY scene keeps going, because we're not doing it for money or fame or status or whatever. We're doing it just because we love doing it. And so if we love doing it, we're going to keep doing it. So when this is over, the underground will be fine. But yeah, I think the bigger guys are going to be hit hard, because the big shows and the big money, and that's gonna where it's gonna take the biggest, it's gonna be the hardest. So getting out to a big rock concert is gonna be difficult, but a punk rock show or a house concert or whatever, that's gonna happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is like, I've noticed that in our town, we stopped booking shows for a while, and then we got back into booking shows like DIY shows, and I found out that it takes like a good amount of month to gather up people again at shows, you know, to make them feel like, oh, there's something happening again or whatever. And I think that's gonna be the hardest part, is that probably the first tours we're gonna do, maybe some people won't, I don't know. I think there's both thing where like some people are gonna be super excited, so they're gonna go to all shows all the time. And some other are gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember, like we used to go to shows, right? And there's, I used to like it. I think, you know, it's because that's a real thing. Like people sometimes forget about this. You know, they forget that they actually like going to shows and meeting people, and because we are such in a big routine that actually haven't been changed that much by the COVID crisis. So
But we're going to be collectively waking up from a long sleep, and it's going to be an interesting experience for sure.
Just a bunch of bears in a van.
Listen, I'm going to let you get on with your day. I think now we've had a really nice conversation. I just wanted to say thank you so much for being fucking awesome, and thanks for all your contribution. And it's been great to know you all these years, and keep going. And we're going to put some links underneath. So if anyone is still watching this late into the video, look underneath to all your stuff. I'm going to probably go watch your video right away. I'm sorry I didn't see that. I listened to the record, but I didn't see the video. But I guess that's about it. So I hope you have a great day, and stay healthy and stay happy, and give my love to everybody in Laval. And I hope to see you again soon, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Like it was great to see you again. I hope we can do it physically the next time.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm going to hit record, and then we'll have a personal goodbye. Here we go.